again. Dr. Melissa Tranquille here. Welcome to another COVID-19 Work from Home series. Today we're going to be talking about safeguarding your mental health. It's very easy if you don't put certain boundaries in place for the line to be blurred, and that working from home can actually turn into something that is not very helpful for you. So let's talk a little bit about mental health. As usual, I do plan to keep today's episode as short, 5 to 10 minutes as promised, but I believe I can give you such great value in these 5 to 10 minutes. So, according to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes that, his or her, he or she has the ability to cope with the normal stresses of life, to work productively, to have a productive day's work and to even contribute to society. And that's what mental health is. When you have a good mental health, it's that you can manage your daily stresses. You can go and have a good day's work and manage the stresses at work. And you can make a valid contribution to your society in whatever shape or form. But if it's not carefully managed, you will find when you're working from home, it can have a detrimental effect on your mental health. And that is why I want to talk about this today. Although some countries are beginning to ease the lockdown, we still have many persons who are working from home. And there are some employers who I have seen have instilled working from home practices until at least for the rest of the year. So for those of you who will still be working from home, it is imperative that you take the steps to safeguard your own mental health and well-being. Because when you're working from home, one of the things that we can struggle with is the self-isolation. And the self-isolation can cause us to feel quite lonely at times because we're working alone at home. And hence, it's essential that you network with other persons. If you work with a team, collaborate with your team, network with them on a daily basis. You can do video conferencing, or if you like me, you work from home, you're an entrepreneur. So I don't particularly have a team that I work with, except my freelancers whom I outsource work to, but they're not really part of my team, my set team per se. So you find what someone in my position should do is get involved in a community. So be part of a community or a forum or a Facebook group with like-minded persons who share your goals and dreams. And you network with those persons, you socialize with those persons, but of course you have the set time during the day to do so that you can have a productive day's work. So that's one of the first things to guard against the self-isolation, to take steps to ensure that you're still socializing and reaching out to persons and connecting with persons so you don't struggle or suffer with loneliness at times. Now, another thing that can happen when you're working from home is that it is very easy for the work and home barrier to become blurred. It's very, very easy for that to happen. And I have found, because I work from home and have kids and have been homeschooling, and what I have found, um, I have been doing it before, but since I have been working from home and homeschooling, because of course schools have been closed, it became even more essential that I really become grounded in these practices, and that is having a routine. And since the children were at home, my routine had to change because when they were going to school, then I would wake up at 5 in the morning, get my exercise done, beginning to get ready to children for school at 7, that sort of thing. But since they had been home, my routine had to change, and it took a little while for me to develop a new routine. But what's essential is having that routine. Having a routine will help to keep those boundaries in place. So, for instance, you have a set time to work. If your work time is 9 to 4 or 9 to 5 or 9 to 3, or whether it's in breaks like me, whether it's 9 to 12 and then 2 to whatever breaks, but you have set times for work. And I recommend that you also have a lunch break. Actually take that lunch break. You know, Many of us work from home, and because we work from home, it's very, very easy to work and not have that lunch break. So I do recommend that we take that lunch break. Set aside that time during the day where that time is for you. And one of the other things that I can think of as well is have an office space, a designated place where you work. Get out of your pajamas, put on work clothes. It doesn't have to be anything super professional, but not anything that is so casual that you still feel homey, so you can separate those barriers. You can create the environment. You can get your headspace in the frame of mind for work. And then when it's time for home, you can actually change it, put on something that's loose, something that reflects it's time for being home. It's time for relaxation. It's time for family. It's time for socializing. So it's really, really important to try your best to not allow the barrier to become too blurred, because it will affect your own mental health and well-being. Another thing too is to manage your distractions, because if you don't manage those distractions, you will know what your distractions are. If you don't manage those distractions, it will increase your level of stress and frustration, and of course it can even affect your work output and productivity. And definitely, eventually, it will have a detrimental impact upon your own mental health and well-being, because you're unable to cope. If you don't manage your distractions, you become super stressed. And there's something I did a Facebook Live recently, and this is something I mentioned. It's called a distraction, but you're attracted to it. And it's your attraction to this thing that distracts you from what you're supposed to be focusing on, right? So you have to identify what are those things that you are attracted to that distracts you from the things that you're supposed to be focusing on, right? And it's not that your distractions are bad, because, for instance, someone may say, well, my distraction is social media. And what they're doing on social media is probably connecting with friends and family. Not that it's bad. Or my distraction is, Netflix. Or my distraction is playing computer games or whatever it may be. Not that it is bad, because we do need those relaxation times. We do need those times to connect with others. We do need those times to entertain our minds. But the thing about it is, this attraction to that thing is distracting you from doing the thing that you are supposed to do to be productive. So identify what your distractions are and put measures in place to ensure that it will no longer be a distraction at the times when you need to focus. Whether it means working in a room that is free from your distractions, whether it means muting your phone, turning off the notifications, putting the phone in a cupboard or a drawer somewhere in another room, whether it means not responding to that call and sending out automated messages that says what time you are available, whether it means self-talk, talking to yourself, literally talking to yourself, and informing your own self, hey, now it's time to focus. Don't be distracted. But you need to find what your distractions are and manage those distractions, because eventually it will affect your mental health and well-being. So always seek for ways. If you're still working from home, it's essential that you still endeavor to seek for ways to safeguard your mental health and well-being. And it's particularly if this is new to you, then it is something that you have to make a deliberate effort to work on. And even for persons who have been working from home for a number of years, I have spoken with some persons who have said to me, hey, for me, my problem is the distractions. That it's not something that you get over it for good. It's something you have to manage on a daily basis. You have to manage the safeguarding of your mental health and well-being on a daily basis. And the same goes for whether you work in an office, right? Whether you work in an office somewhere outdoors or away from home, or whether you work at home, the same thing applies. So I would advise, begin an exercise routine. If you have not yet started exercising, even if it means just 30 minutes power walks, begin an exercise routine. Start a gratitude walk or start a gratitude journal. Set boundaries at home. Have clear and set boundaries at home. Ensure that you plan your day and that you take a lunch hour, and that's your lunch hour to how to say it, like actually unlock on or the word I'm looking for, the lunch hour where you just turn everything off, or so shut off everything to do with work. And that's your lunch hour for you. Whether during that lunch hour you go out for a stroll, or you do whatever you choose to do, or maybe entertain those distractions at that time. But take a full lunch hour. Network with persons, connect with persons, video conferencing. But do your very best to ensure that whilst you're working from home, you are safeguarding your mental health and well-being. Don't take it for granted. Don't go working round the clock, pushing yourself to the limit, and then you fall victim to burnout. And I do have another video that talks about how to overcome that burnout. It happened to me many years ago. Because you're working from home and you haven't set those boundaries. And you become so engrossed, especially if you love what you do. And when you get into the flow, you just don't want to get out of it. You could just go for hours. And even if you take that break, you get back into it because your mind is so focused on what you want to get done. And then you break down because you're burnt out. So really take your mental health seriously and don't take it for granted. I take mine seriously. I make sure I get my exercise done. I make sure I have those gratitude moments. I do ensure that I pray. I do ensure I laugh with the kids at times. We even play board games and have some fun, take some time off from work. And what I'm presently working on is that if I'm going to pick my daughter up from school because she started school this week, during that moment, walking home with her, I'm trying to be in the moment a little more, be present in that moment. So you can really and fully take advantage of that moment. And you know what happens by so doing? You become distressed. And of course, you enrich your own mental health. So I want to wish you guys the best. I hope that you got great value from this video. If you ever want to know more about me and what I do, hop over to my website, www.mttrainingenterpriseslimited.com. Bye for now.